Hello, here is Z.A.P.Y speaking. Today we're going to look into one of the most accomplished speakers of our modern politics, and that's President Barack Obama. And we will show one clip of how he handled a difficult situation. Aaron here will give you a highlight of what we're going to talk about in this video clip. Aaron, please.
Yeah, there's four main things, and of course we'll get some of the other smaller things along the way, but there's four things we want to talk about. The first is how we can handle the distraction, and that can go from everything from, as in this case, someone else speaking when they shouldn't, or cell phones, ambulances, whatever might make noise and distract us. Sometimes someone walks into a room while we're speaking. The next thing I want to cover is the power and importance of eye contact. And I think we all know eye contact's important innately, but there's a deeper level I want to get at. Another part is using the audience to our advantage. How do we get the audience's actions and reactions to work in our favor? And the last one is the power of parallelism in speaking. So those are the four main things with a few other smaller things sprinkled throughout.
Nice, and let's dive in to see how President Barack Obama does all this. He's an accomplished speaker. Let's begin from the beginning of the video clip here.
We're going to grow our economy. We're going to make our country more secure. We'll strengthen our families. And most importantly, we will live up. Most importantly, we will live up. Most importantly, we will live up to our character as a nation. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Every single day.
That's why we're here.
President, please use your executive order to halt deportation for all 11.5 undocumented immigrants in this country right now. We agree that we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. At the same time, you have a power to stop deportation for all undocumented
Actually, I don't. And that's why we're here.
I need your help.
Okay.
Okay. Obama does three things here to handle the distraction that comes in. So he has someone jump in and start speaking immediately when he's in the middle of a sentence. I don't know about immediately, but he jumps in and he starts speaking and distracting everyone and pulling attention away from the speaker. Now, Obama does three things. He tries three different methods of handling the distraction. And we can do the same thing in our speaking. When we speak, we can use these same three methods. The first thing he does is he tries to power through it. He just starts speaking louder, projecting more, and trying to go over top of it. So you can get over top of the distraction. Well, that doesn't work here. So the next thing he tries is at first he tries to engage with the guy, which is another method. He turns and he starts talking to him. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, trying to appease him in a sense. And then he goes, when that doesn't work, he goes into his last method, which is just waiting. Just waits for the guy to finish most of his piece, and then he engages with them again once the guy's finished most of his piece. And we can do these things depending on the distractions we meet in our speaking. So if a cell phone goes off, we can either kind of overpower it by just speaking louder, or we can wait for it to end. You can't really engage with it unless you answer it, which isn't a good idea when speaking. Or if someone else starts making noise in a speaking situation, someone in the audience makes noise, you can engage with them, you can ignore them, or you can speak over them. So these are three options, and there's lots of others, but there's three great options that Obama uses very effectively.
I really like how Aaron pointed out here, because not all of us are going to give a speech in a political rally, but we do have this small issue coming up in our day-to-day meeting or our day-to-day presentation. Aaron basically says what we can learn as a regular day-to-day citizen in this, to use similar tactic as a president uses. That's a really good pointer for us to keep in mind. Now let's move to the next point here. It's only 1 minute and 10 seconds. Here we go.
When I'm speaking as President of the United States, and I come to this community, is that if in fact I could solve all these problems without passing laws in Congress, then I would do so. But we're also a nation of laws. That's part of our tradition. And so the easy way out is to try to yell and pretend like I can do something by violating our laws. And what I'm proposing is the harder path, which is to use our
Okay. This is the power of eye contact that I mentioned. You'll notice how he's turned and he's looking at the heckler. I want to still be able to speak into the mic, so I may not be able to turn as effectively. But yeah, thank you, Yangfan. He turns and looks at the heckler. He's using his eyes, because when we make eye contact with someone, we're building a connection with them. And if we're the speaker and we're speaking over them, we're actually taking control of the situation. So we're looking very directly. We're speaking to them very directly. And of course, Obama does a fantastic job with his pauses, where he really holds those moments. And so he speaks very directly. He pauses for a long time, and he makes sure he's engaging directly with the speaker. And this forces the speaker to listen and makes the engagement much more impactful because of that eye contact. There is one struggle here, though, and it's coming from the microphones. So I just had it myself. If I turn away, we can't hear it. And you'll see Obama, whenever he looks back at this guy, he's always kind of doing these half turns every once in a while. So here he looks at him for a long time, but partway through he looks back and he gets louder for a second because he turns back to the microphone, even though his speaking volume probably doesn't change much. You see he's fighting with it. So ideally, to me, you want the whole audience in front of you, but it's something he's dealing with. And I get the rally. They want people behind him to look like he's being supported by a large group of people, and that makes sense. But at the same time, we really want to be able to speak always into a mic, or one other option, lapel mics. They work really well. I've used them. I hate that kind of microphone where it's stuck in one place. I prefer lapel mics. I think they're so much better. But great eye contact, even if it was at the cost of mic contact, if you will.
Right. He tried to balance these two situations here. He wanted to make eye contact, like I see you, I'm controlling the situation. And he tried to maintain a balance by speaking back to the mic. And he's just outstanding leader here to balance things out. And he I would say he did a fairly good job to balance each, and we can hear him quite clearly. And the heckler was not screaming like crazy. So pretty good control. Now let's go to the next point of discussion.
Just before we move on, you mentioned something important there about balancing it. And he does balance it really well, because it is key. You've got to prioritize things. And I think the eye contact in this case is probably more important because he needs to keep control. But I think he also knows that those mics are pretty much omnidirectional, and they're really receptive, because the guy in the background starts yelling and we can hear him very clearly. So either the guy in the background's already mic'd up and this was planned, which seems unlikely because I think it's the guy in the suit but not wearing the tie. I think it's him, and that guy, you can't see a mic in there. So I don't think he's mic'd, but obviously the sound is carrying into a microphone. So I think Obama knows he can still get away with it, but you can see he's still fighting with it. Anyway, keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
No worry. We have a solo discussion. Here's our next timestamp.
So for those of you who are committed to getting this done, I am going to march with you and fight with you every step of the way to make sure that we are welcoming every striving, hard-working immigrant who sees America the same way we do. As a country where no matter who you are or what you look like or where you come from, you can make it if you try. And if you're serious about making that happen, then I'm ready to work with you. But it is going to require work. It is not simply a matter of us just saying we're going to violate the law.
This is simply a master class of a few seconds. And let's hear how Aaron going to break this down for us.
Yeah, he does a couple things. There's actually two separate sections I really like that he does here. One, when the audience starts clapping, he uses that as almost a propelling force. So they start clapping and he starts getting louder, and then you see his hand come up, and he uses it as a moment to turn it into a motivational speech. He starts speaking louder and saying, we're going to do this together. We're going to march together. We're going to do this together. And he starts saying all about together, and he starts motivating his audience. And you'll notice he starts enunciating his words more to emphasize more. And then he gets quiet again and he turns back to the guy. So now he's gotten more serious. He's gotten his motivational part. And here's the second thing I wanted to mention is he turns back towards him, uses this more forceful tone where he's enunciating for emphasis. He says, we're going to have to work hard. He almost makes the first part of the word louder and he enunciates it very heavily. And he almost asserts that control again. And he shows that this isn't on me, this is on you. He's turning the guy's original argument back on him with that use of voice, emphasis, turning around, that eye contact once again. And he's able to do that because he was able to springboard off of that audience applause. So he's gotten a motivational tool paired in with taking back control. And that was I think that's a great use of some of our speaking skills: voice, eye contact, knowing when to become, like, gestures, knowing when to become a bit more forceful with our voice. He does a great job with all of those things.
Yes. The other reason I say it's master class is he simultaneously address two different aspects. Mm-hmm. He addressed to the all audience in the room, say we need to work on this. This is a forceful tone. And then he would turn back and look at the person and say, I'm ready to work with you on this issue. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how he work in these two levels, this whole population and this one individual.
Yeah.
In fact, individual is the basic unit of a population, and that's where the action taking place. And so he really honed in that point. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, that he nicely bounces between groups. So it goes from me to you to us to me to you to us to we to you to me. It's just a nice way of jumping between all of it, and it makes everyone feel like they're part of a single purpose and cause there. So yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah. Just one thing before we move on to our next point, because we only comment on the single timestamp of where Obama did really, really well. The whole storyline in this speech here is the hecklers say that Obama has the superior power to change things as he wish, which is what most people think as what president has, and that's what some presidents act like they have. But then Obama said, actually, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. And then he explained how it works. He explained the whole democratic process.
Right.
So then we highlight this key point, how he turned this almost say, I give order kind of scenario to say how we should work together to make this happen. So that's the whole general storyline behind this. As usual, we'll put this link in our show note down below. You're more than welcome to look at the whole thing over again, and you will see how this whole storyline developed. And now I think we are ready to move to our one last point.
I believe so, yeah.
Right. Here is the last.
Wonderful process of democracy, and sometimes it is messy, and sometimes it is hard. But ultimately, justice and truth win out. That's always been the case in this country. That's going to continue to be the case today.
So here's what I want to say about this. This is, so far, we've mostly commented on delivery techniques, things like eye contact, gestures, voice, body language. But what's done really well here, and I don't know how much of this is planned because it is an issue of a heckler, but it's really good speech writing. It's the use of parallelism. You'll notice he says, sometimes it's blank, sometimes it's blank, and he has his hand come up. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's difficult. And then he actually finishes off that parallelism a few sentences later by matching that with an always. So parallelism, for those who don't know, is just when we take a similar sentence structure and repeat it, generally changing one word or two words. And that adds a feeling of kind of layering. It makes things feel like they're layered on top of each other, and it makes things feel more powerful. And I find it's especially effective when the third parallel, the third item layered on top, is different somehow. So in this case, the way Obama does it so effectively is it's sometimes, always is the counterpoint. So sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's messy, but we're always going to make it through. And that's always the most positive point, or not always, but in this case, it's the most positive point. And it's a great way of using that, of speech writing and using content to make something feel more impactful. Because he could have said, yeah, our process is difficult, but we'll make it through. And that might have been a similar message, but it's not nearly as effective because he's not using that same rhetorical device of parallelism, where it's like layering of ideas, sometimes, always, sometimes, always. And it makes the always much more powerful after there's these two bad sometimes. The good always is much more powerful. I'm ranting and rambling, but that's the idea that I wanted to get at.
That is true, and he matched his hand gesture to his point. But at the end, he said transit to the always one, his finger pointing. And the other thing in this video demonstrates that yes, he prepared his speech. It's unlikely he prepared heckler himself. So what we can take home to learn here as a day-to-day citizen is when we give a speech, usually go as we planned. No one gonna jump in to block any of what we are saying. People are generally polite. But in case there's a rude person or someone give you really, really nasty face or really nasty eyes, and that happens to me sometimes when I give a conference presentation. You need to still stay in control, and that's the power of it. Stay in control because you are the one having the mic. No one knows heckler, no one knows people who yelling at the background. I definitely know those people make a weird face or eyes. So stay in control, handle stressful situation, and for sure stay on your course, but you can always fine tune speech a little bit to make it more suitable for the next scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great point. You stay in control. The mic, whatever form it may take, is the most powerful tool. Being on the stage innately makes you the leader in that situation. You're the one in control. So keep the control. You have the trump card already, and the only way for you to lose it is if you give it away. So that's a great thing to point out, Yangfan. Just to summarize the ideas we talked about here, because there were quite a few, and just to kind of wrap them up, the four main things were: one, handling distractions, and the three methods that we talked about of trying to overpower it by just speaking over it, trying to pause through it. And of course, Obama's the master of pauses, so he does a great job with it. And then the third one is engaging with it and tackling it head on, which is what he ultimately does and finds successful. The next was the power of eye contact and how we build a connection with it, but also how we can assert control in a situation and how we can hold someone's attention and show them that it's our time to speak, especially when we have that all-important mic that Yangfan just pointed out. Additionally, if you can, use the audience's reactions to your advantage. If they start clapping for you, use that as a springboard. You can get to a more powerful part because they now agree. And the same thing goes if people are laughing or something like that. You can, once again, use that as a springboard to move into something greater. And lastly, if it comes to speech writing, use rhetorical devices like parallelism. We have that sometimes, always, sometimes, always. Or there's other things. Alliteration is also a powerful tool. There's lots of things like that where you can make the speech more powerful and send the same message, but in a more polished, professional, impactful way.
I agree. I think this video demonstrates, I will distill to two words. Is control, actually control and impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what the leader showed to us. So this is a wrap up for our Z.A.P.Y speaking analysis on President Barack Obama handling this heckler on one of his presidential speech. Hope everybody can take something away from it. We will encounter this difficult situation in our speech, and we just need to know how to handle it. And if you like this video, please share to your friend, click a like or comment on it, and tell us what you want to know, what you want to learn. We have a lot of content in our pipeline, and we would like to see you come back more often.